Good morning. If you have a Bible with you, please turn to the book of Proverbs, chapter 1. Follow with me as I begin reading at verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Well, this morning we're going to spend a little time in the wisdom literature. Now, the wisdom literature can mean sometimes there's a larger collection of that are included by some people in the wisdom literature, and that's a right and good thing. But the heart of the wisdom literature, I would contend, are the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. And we'll see why as we go through this morning. And so today, I'm not going to go deep into each one, but what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look big picture. Why does God give us this wisdom literature? And how are we to use it? Because it is very unique. So over the years, and if you've been a Christian for a while, I'm sure you've been in and out of the wisdom literature quite a bit, and maybe you have the habit of doing a proverb a day or a chapter of the Proverbs a day. Some people do that, and the Ecclesiastes, we know a few famous verses, and then Job, we mostly know kind of the overall theme. But what I've noticed is this, and this struck me years ago, that if I didn't know Christianity, if I knew nothing about Christianity, and you sat me down and you gave me the book of Proverbs to read and said, read this. This is a piece of a holy book, and I'd read it. And then when I was done with that, and you said, okay, here, I want you to read this book, the book of Ecclesiastes. And I read that. I'd say, okay. And then when I was done with that, you handed me the book of Job, and I read that. I would think these are three different religions, to be quite honest. And we'll see that a little more this morning. So that either means somebody really messed up, the Bible needed a better editor, or there's something very profound about these messages that seem to conflict. But these are voices of wisdom. Now, I was a younger guy, and when I was single and young in my teens, we'd go to family gatherings with extended family. And at some point, I would see my uncles. And my uncles at different times would come up and they'd want to talk about something, but they would often talk about life as only an uncle can do, right? Well, I didn't think much of that as I grew up. I got married to Leslie and started going to her family outings, and she had uncles, and they would do something very similar. An uncle at a family gathering is just going to pontificate, right, and talk about politics and all the big issues of the day. Well, now I'm an uncle. And when I get together with particularly her family, and I've got all these nephews and nieces, well, I get to pontificate, okay? So I want you to think of these three books, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job, as three uncles. And they each want to get our ear. And so what would Uncle Proverbs sound like? So let's say I'm sitting there, it's Thanksgiving, I'm eating all the usual stuff, and here comes Uncle Proverb. What would he sound like? Uncle Proverb would sound something like this. You know, son, if you want to get ahead in life, you've got to be honest. You've got to work hard. If you work hard and are diligent, you will prosper. And if you have a wife, you stick by her no matter what. And watch your tongue. But if you do all these things, life is going to work well for you. And okay, Uncle Proverb, thanks. Well, he goes away, and as he goes elsewhere to talk to the other nieces and nephews, here comes Uncle Ecclesiastes. And he sits down and he says, you want to know about life? Yeah, well, Uncle Proverbs was just telling me, well, let me tell you something about life. It's all meaningless. It's not going to work. Whatever you put your hand to will disintegrate. And even if it doesn't disintegrate, you're going to get old and you're going to die. And the best use of your time is to think about your own death. Well, gee, thanks, Uncle Ecclesiastes, right? So then he leaves, right? And sure enough, here he comes, tottering over. He's got achy joints and everything. Uncle Job sits down. He says, you want to know about life? Well, yeah, because I'm kind of confused. He says, life is pain. There's only one certainty, and that's pain. And you're going to have pain, and it's going to come when you least expect it. And you won't know why it's there, and you don't know when or if it's ever going to go away. Life is pain. Okay, Uncle Job, I have these three views of life. This is the wisdom literature. And I don't know if maybe a month ago I was here preaching, and I talked about something called tension theology. You'll hear me refer to that frequently. And tension theology is when you have seemingly opposite ideas that you must hold fully to understand life and God and how to live the godly life. And with the wisdom literature, which one of these do you hold more firmly? You hold them all 100%. Because they're like lenses of wisdom. If you've ever been to, I see lots of glasses out there, and there's probably some contact lenses, and I've got my readers up here. But if you go to the optometrist, you know how when he's testing you, he puts that thing in your face and he's moving. Is this blurry now? And is this blurry now? And which one looks more sharp? And he's just narrowing in, but he keeps moving those multiple lenses, trying to get you into focus. That's what God does with these three books. I want you to be focused in life, and these three lenses are something that you and I must have functioning with us all the time. So I'm going to take a chunk from each one of them, and I just ended with this one. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. The existence of the wisdom. Now there's wisdom. The whole Bible is wisdom, right? But these particular books are really focused on particular lenses for a reason. And that reason is we, without knowing it, we're bent to not do what they say. But usually when we're bent to not do what they say, we'll do one of them fairly well to think that we're being godly. But we've got to do all three of them well. And so we need to understand our own heart and how we work against the wisdom literature. wisdom is very interesting how God talks about wisdom in the Bible. And in particular, the book of Proverbs. In Proverbs 1:20-23, he says this, wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the market, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Well, this is very interesting because wisdom is depicted by God as a female, and she seems to exist before the creation. So there's something about wisdom that the creation, us, and everything here was created with wisdom already there. This universe was meant to be governed by wisdom. And it depicts her as a lady, and she's at the city gate. Now, in the ancient Near East, you'd have a city, and it's all walled in. But the city gate is certainly a door. There's a gate there. But there's a lot more to it. It's a very busy place. And so everybody who's coming and going from the city, and some people are visitors from another area, but some people just live outside, are part of the city, but they live outside the city walls, and maybe they come in to do trade and different things like that. But you also come to the city gate if you have a dispute with a neighbor or something, and there are wise people there designated to hear your case. And so this is the center of commerce. It is the ancient Near East equivalent for every city. It's kind of their Times Square. It's busy. And it says that's where wisdom is. And she is shouting because we can't hear her. There's something about the busyness of our lives that makes us much less attuned to the voice of God and the voice of wisdom. And you notice in that verse, it talks about 3 different types of people: a simple one, a scoffer, and a fool. Proverbs is going to use these categories, and we like to think they're other people. Oh, fool. Well, I know a fool. Well, but Lady Wisdom wants us to see in our own heart a scoffer, a simpleton, and a fool. And a fool in Proverbs is evil. It's not just a goofy person who can't get serious about anything, or they're clumsy. No, a fool in the book of Proverbs and throughout the Bible is evil. They're bent on evil. And a scoffer is just, you know what a scoffer is, right? Right, whatever. That's a scoffer. They're kind of cynical about everything. They have an opinion about everything, and we can tell you, a scoffer can tell you what's wrong. They can criticize everything. And that is the easiest thing to do, is to be a critic. So if you listen to podcasts or you get on social media or read blog posts, and you find there's a lot of critics out there. So from time to time, my kids would critique something, maybe at church, and I'm like, look, guys, the world does not need another critic. It's got plenty. That job's filled. What it needs is people full of life, and to be life givers. But then there's the simple ones. Oh, I just keep it simple. I don't want to think deeply about my heart or anything. I just keep it so simple. because I might have to really see myself. So I'd rather be simple. Lady Wisdom is shouting. So all three categories. And if we all go into different ones of these. But Lady Wisdom says, if you will turn your ear, if you'll stop and listen, I will make my words known to you, and I will pour my spirit out to you. Well, when I think about the book of Proverbs and all it says, there's so many categories, so many good lessons there. And what I love I like puzzles. I like crossword puzzles. I like puzzles in general. I like watching and reading mysteries. And Proverbs is great because you'll see this little proverb, and it just looks so simple and innocent. 2 little lines, and then when you think about it, and the more you think about it, and the more you stare at it and think about it, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But in summary, one way to think about the book of Proverbs is the lens of responsibility. A plus B equals C. If A happens and you do B, or A is your situation in life, you do B, C will be the result. Raise up your children in the way they should go. They won't stray from it. But this is general truth. I know plenty of really great parents, some better than us, whose kids have gone astray, and vice versa. But it's generally true that if you raise up your kids in the way they should go, they will not stray from it. And statistics, they've done tons of research that bears it out. So it's about, Proverbs teaches us responsible living. God created the universe with wisdom in mind, and because of that, if we will follow wisdom's instructions, things will work better, much better than if you don't. Proverbs is not a book of guarantees. But it's about living responsibly. And the second you say, I need to live responsible, you need to ask, well, to whom am I responsible? Responsibility means you're responsible to somebody. Well, God, certainly. But once I'm married, I'm responsible to my wife. Once I have kids, I have an employer, and all these responsibilities begin to shape a life. And oftentimes, that, when I'm not listening to Lady Wisdom, the responsibilities in life become a burden I want to escape. And often, that's what happens as we age. Particularly as men, we just want to get rid of responsibilities and just do the things we love to do. That was in me at 7 years of age, and I anticipate that pull will be in me at 70. So it's if Proverbs is the book of responsibility, that means it was written because I am bent towards irresponsibility. And what I'm going to do here is I've just got 3 words that depict some aspect of irresponsibility that we are pulled to. The first one is kind of a big word, but it's pretty pervasive concept, privatization. I don't want to be responsible to anybody else. I just want to be left alone. I just want to do my own thing. Yeah, I know there's problems and issues around, and even in my family and the community, and it's just overwhelming. I just want to be privatized. I just want to worry about myself. I don't want to go to things I don't want to go to. I don't want to serve social obligations. Now, God isn't saying, oh, you've got to do everything everybody else wants you to. But in our culture, there is such a bent of privatization. And even as we advance technologically, I can use social media to really privatize what I want to see, who I want to see, and what I want them to see about myself. Well, the Christian community is a place to be known. And we want to create a place to hide. Proverbs says, don't do that. Come out. Well, the second bent in our culture and with our sinful hearts has to do with the emotions. I want to allow my feelings to determine what I'm going to do and not going to do. Now, feelings are very important. God created us with emotions. And it's part of being an image bearer. But the emotions are always to be governed by wisdom. And instead, we've birthed the culture here in the last 50 to 70 years where the emotions are not to be questioned. Don't bring your wisdom to question my emotions. How dare you? And so we're pulled, the wisdom literature wants us to pull us out of that trap. And a third powerful one is victimization. We're a culture of victims. And so Proverbs, if I'm responsible, the first person of accountability to myself is myself. And to own my life and to own that things have happened to me, but for the most part, I'm in the position I am in because of the decisions I made. And I'm not a victim. You can do a lot of things to me, but I choose how I will respond. Yeah, we just feed that victim fire, right? Nothing's my fault. Nothing's my fault. But Proverbs, you read through the Proverbs and it's just like, no, own your response. Own where you're at. And things will go well. You'll do much better. Victimization does not deliver a fruit that is desirable. It just doesn't. In the moment, it feels good because I'm defending myself or everybody else is to blame. So that's a quick snapshot of Proverbs. But now, as we look deeper into Proverbs, this is one of my, I think one of the more potent Proverbs. 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. Amen. Amen. And this is one, the longer you stare at it, the deeper it gets. But it's got to get deep into my own heart. What kind of words come out of my mouth? And not just the words I use, but if you know anything about communication, there are words, there's tone, and there's body language. And the actual words we use are something like 15% of the message. Our body language, and particularly our tone, is the real message. And it's out of our heart that our tongue speaks. And what is deep, particularly deep about this proverb is it really makes me think about what I'm giving you. So think of your words as, let's say somebody comes to visit you and you're going to host them and they come in and you make them a meal or you set out some hors d'oeuvres and what kind of food are you giving them, okay? When we talk to one another, when we communicate with one another, it's like we're giving something to people. I'm either giving you words of life or words of death. And my tone and how I deliver them are everything. And even if I shut you out, that's just a way of words of death. If we think, oh, I'm going to ignore this person because they've made me mad, that is death. That is not life. There's no neutral ground here. But this talks about the fruits. What will be the fruit if I continue to be a sarcastic person? So I grew up, I learned to be kind of sarcastic in humor, but sarcasm often with humor is tricky because it can be really funny. People can laugh at it, but oftentimes there's a barb in there. I liken it to like a sarcastic comment can be like a jelly donut with a little piece of glass in the jelly that nobody knows about you. And somebody often is getting hurt. And it's just such a passive way to zing people. And so you start thinking in your life, what is the fruit of my doing this? Well, the fruit is easy to see after a short time. People will adjust around you because they're afraid of you. Now, they won't say they're afraid of you like you're gonna get hit, but they're afraid of your sarcasm. And they'll be very careful. And that's sad because we leave something on the table. We're not known to each other. We're not open. And life is not flowing between us. Well, now I want to talk about Ecclesiastes. We'll see the problem right here. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who are over Jerusalem before me. And my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Ooh, wait a second. So, is it good to accumulate? This does not say that wisdom is a bad thing to pursue. But if we think, if I just do everything the Proverbs tell me, I'm guaranteed my life to be a certain thing, that's not true. And that word that keeps getting repeated, that things are striving after the wind. Vanity of vanities, maybe your version says. Meaningless, meaningless. A good way to understand what the writer of Ecclesiastes is describing here. Any cigar smokers in here? Is there a cigar smoker? You can, yeah, that's cool. That's fine. Thank you. Because I'd kind of like to someday do a sermon on this and have a cigar up here and you puff that smoke. And quite literally, in ancient Israel, that word, vanity of vanities, is that puff of smoke. And you watch it come off, and then you just watch it slowly dissipate, right? And that's what he's saying about all these things. We chase them so that we can lock them down, and then we can guarantee what our life will be like. But, oh, no. The more wisdom you get, actually, the more sorrow you will get. And you'll get vexation because it doesn't always work the way you want it because the world is fallen. Christ has come. He's rescued us through the cross and resurrection. but the last movement of that rescue is yet to come. And in between here, in between his first coming and the second coming, is much vexation. Now, some days you don't feel vexation. But my guess is when you think of vexation, which is just think of kind of being dumbfounded by things that are going on in your life, things you're doing, things people around you are doing, that's vexation. It's like, why doesn't everybody just do what Proverbs says? And why doesn't it always work? Because there's a brokenness, there's a profound loneliness and brokenness in every one of us. And no matter what we do to get rid of it, no matter how good things are going, like that smoke vapor, they're just going to drift away. Ecclesiastes is the lens of impermanence. Meaning, it's the lens that tells you what lasts and what doesn't. Those are two very different lists. One is really long and the other is really short. Nothing lasts. But you and I are bent towards fooling ourselves that we can make life and the good things of life last, permanent. We trick ourselves. And that's why the Ecclesiastes writer, Solomon, tells us, think about your death, think about the end, because when you're younger, you know intellectually you're going to die, but you don't really live like it. At least I didn't. And aging and health, it brings it closer and closer to you. But we can still be quite old and think, push away the reality of death. I liken life in some ways when I think about our mortality. It's like when I was a kid and I would go to Cedar Point. Who's been to Cedar Point? You know, it's an amusement park, or if you've been to Disney or something like that, I'm sure it's the same. When I got to Cedar Point, I went with a group. I think it was a school trip. We get to Cedar Point. We are all so stoked to get in that park, right? And can't we go earlier? No, the park's not open yet. We're waiting outside the gates, and as soon as those gates open, we're like thoroughbreds, right? Coming out for the Kentucky Derby, and we're into that park, and it's just overwhelming. What am I going to eat? What am I going to ride? What am I going to do? Water slides, and you just and as the first half of the day, you're just going along, and it just seems like there's no limit to what I'm going to experience that day. But eventually, it's time to eat, right? And it's lunch, and you finish lunch, and that's really the first time that I get a thought of, hey, wait a second, our day's kind of half over. And now I've got to be a little more strategic about what we're going to do. We can't go do that ride way over there and come back to this ride. We've got to be more strategic, all right? We'll do these 3 rides, then we'll go over here. And then you start watching that clock, right? You know the sun's going down. Oh, now, okay, now we're running from ride to ride to not waste any time. And eventually, the worst thing happens. The park announces it's closing. And your hope is maybe they won't notice me trying to get on one more ride, but they do. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. And that's how life happens. And the writer of Ecclesiastes says, the more you think about the park closing, then you can think through life and how we're spending our time. And Ecclesiastes is that lens of impermanence. But we're bent to making things permanent. And so what do? We attach to things, we fixate on things, and then we're demanding of those things. We attach, we fixate, we demand. What do we attach to? Anything that gives us a sense of relief and a sense of life. It can be very good things. We have our first grandkid. I can attach to her. She's awesome. You're just watching this kid. And so it can be grandkids. It can be our own families. It can be our businesses, our vocation, our hobby, our car, our hunting. But what happens is we're given things that are under our responsibility, just like Proverbs says, but then we begin to attach to them and we fixate on them because they're giving us a sense that I can get life out of this for a long time. But then I become demanding with those things. So if you block me from getting what gives me life, I can get angry, I can do all kinds of things. Don't take my thing from me. This is life. And Ecclesiastes says don't hold things like that. They're not going to last. Certainly, move into things responsibly in your family, and yes, well, you hold them like this, open hand. And Ecclesiastes is there because we want to go like this and just squeeze life out of it. And we think if we hang on to it long enough, the park will never close. It does. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. And I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this is also a vanity. I think I'm squeezing more life out of things than the guy who's just kind of wasting, not doing what I think he should do. But the truth is, we both end up in the same place. Well, if you read Ecclesiastes, except for this part of the book, it reads like the Stoic philosophers. And you'll read it, and you'll be an existentialist when you're done, because life just doesn't have meaning. But that's not true. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. So following God, being wise and responsible, and following God, does it deliver something? Yes, but not in the way we hope it would in this life, or that most of us hope it would. We're trying to get something out of it that it can't deliver because we've stained the whole universe with sin. But it's not all hopeless and meaningless. Oh no. It has meaning in ways that you and I can't conceive. And God gathers them all in. And when the second coming happens, then there will be an outpouring. Ecclesiastes, the wisdom of it itself, the book of Ecclesiastes will be like a smoke vapor itself and go away. Now, that brings us to Job. Real quick, I'm sure most of you know the story of Job. Job is one of the most puzzling books in the Bible. It's, as far as ancient literature goes, if you go to a public university, if you go to U of M and you study ancient literature, you're going to study the book of Job, not because they believe in God, but because it's this incredible piece of ancient literature. But the story is a little disconcerting because Job is a righteous man. And he's not only righteous for himself, he tries to be righteous for his family. And it's God who seeks out Satan, not the other way around. It's like, hey, have you considered Job? Remember, we use the word considered just out of the book of Hebrews. Consider, have you looked at him and have you really studied him? Well, then this little almost bet goes on, right? You can take everything from him. He'll still be faithful. And then, you can harm his body. You just can't kill him. And so Job goes through this intense suffering. And as he's in the midst of it, he said to his wife, and one of the people encouraging Job to just curse God and die, end this. What you're going through is so miserable. And he said to her, you speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. You can read all kinds of books. Is God the author of evil? Yes, no. He's sovereign. How does this all work? And I've gone to lectures and all kinds of stuff, and I don't know. I just know what this says. Whatever I'm going through, God has not lost sight of me. That's all I know for sure. Sometimes I can figure out, I did something wrong to bring this about. Sometimes he makes that known. But a lot of times things happen. Is God testing me? Am I going through a Job experience? Has he just turned me over? I don't know. Unless he tells me, I don't know. But don't ever think he's lost sight of us. And don't ever think his love for us has diminished. How does this all go together? That's God. I don't know. And this is the trouble that's going to come upon Job. And he's going to have these friends who know all this religious truth. And they just tell him, when I look at Scripture, A plus B equals C, you're doing something wrong, Job. Repent. It's like, I haven't done anything wrong. And they go on and on and on. These are the three friends you don't want when you're in trouble, but it's often the only friends we get. And it's often the kind of friend we are. The mystery of God and suffering is so big, and we try to explain it in our own terms. And this, if we could explain and understand sin, it just wouldn't be that evil. When we're bewildered by what's going on with sin in our life, we're starting to taste how truly diabolical sin is, because we chose in our sin to have a world without God and his wisdom ordering it. Here you go. Job is the lens of groaning. And I get that word right out of Romans. And so now we get our three lenses: to be responsible, but to know everything is impermanent, and to know that groaning is an important concept for the believer to understand when we think about life and what's going on. The opposite of groaning is grasping. When I was younger and I think about evil, I think about things that went wrong in my life, and then I would try and fix them. So let's say you break an arm. You go to the doctor, you get it set, and you know the day is coming in a few weeks where your cast comes off and everything's back to normal. And I perceived life as a young man that the world is functioning well, but every once in a while, some people suffer. And every once in a while, out of bad luck, I suffer. And the whole quest of my life then is to get back to a point where I don't suffer and that I can join the rest of life who's not suffering. So when you're in suffering, you think you're alone, or there's very few of you. Romans tells us, no, the whole universe is groaning. No, sin has stained everything. And when I suffer, I actually become more aware of the suffering of the universe. I'm more in touch with the reality. I haven't become an outcast and I'm by myself. Oh no, I've become aware that this is where the whole universe is heading without the cross. And to groan is to not have words, to be suffering so bad that your vocabulary can't keep up with it. And at that point, if we're prayerful and we keep coming to God, the Holy Spirit will take up our case for us to God because we don't have words. Well, the opposite of groaning is to grasp. I don't want to suffer. I want to work my way back to where I was. And oftentimes we're lost in denial of suffering or the fact that God may want to use this suffering for our own good. And then we become angry. We become angry at those who have caused our suffering. And there are true injustices out there. I'd never advocate that, oh, you just got to be happy no matter what happens to you. No, there's real pain out there and there's real injustice. And we really hurt each other in deep and powerful ways. But if I deny the groaning and I grasp, I become angry, and then my anger just kind of settles in. It grows little roots around my heart, and it begins to squeeze, and that's resentment. I don't say I resent God, but maybe I do, but I resent other people so much, it's inevitable. I'm resenting God. So what I want to encourage us to do is wherever you're at in life, if things are going well, great. Oh, but if you're feeling like life is getting away from you and nothing lasts, it's true. And if you're suffering, all three of these lenses give us understanding of our life and what's happening around us. But the main place we got to look, as always, is our own heart with these things. And we can use these books of the Bible and understand them deeply. They're meant to be understood deeper and deeper the more you visit them. And that is how to live with the lenses of wisdom. So I encourage you sometime this week to poke into each one at least a little bit and just think about my own life and think about how I grasp or I try and make things permanent or I try and make everything work out the way I want and I act irresponsible. Finally, Job is going to help us here. He's lost. Job is totally lost in what's happening to him. And his friends are accusing him, and he knows they're not right. And the book of Job is essentially, becomes a trial Job takes God to court. God, look at my life. Answer me. Why? Why is this happening? He is totally lost at that point. And near the end of Job, there's 67 questions. God says, okay, brace yourself like a man. Here it comes. And you answer my questions. And he asks him 67 questions that he never thought of before. Where were you when I laid the corners of the universe? You know, and he's just going thing after thing of, Leviathan, and and after that, Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore, I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Does Job have his answer? Why this happened to him? No. He is going to get relief. But if you remember back when we were in Hebrews 11 and 12, God says there's this cloud of witnesses watching you, wanting you, urging you to be faithful. And some of the faithful have great victories because of their faith, but some are martyred and suffer greatly because of their faith. The goal is to have great faith. And faith, you only know if you have faith when you're totally lost. What do you do when you're totally lost in what's happening to you? And your next step is God. And the wisdom literature is there to help us live through responsibility, impermanence, and through groaning. And through this, we're the people of God. I'm going to turn this over to Chuck now.
Matt, would you mind just praying for us before the praise team comes up? Thank you.
Lord, your word, what a gift. What an honest God you are. You're not tricky at all. You know life is confusing for us. We're going to go through things that we don't understand. And yet, out of your love for us, you tell us the truth. And the truth will always lead us back to you. So help us be, as individuals, as families, as couples, as a church, to be a people who, no matter what, we live by wisdom and we turn to you. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Will you please stand with us?